The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
I'd like to call to order our April 28th Cary Town Council, or Cary Planning and Zoning Board, excuse me. I go to so many town council meetings, I forget where I am. We are going to begin tonight by adopting an agenda, and I understand we have one modification. Mr. Miller, you've got that, right?
I move that we adopt our agenda as published with the following change. Removal of item E1, 13 REZ 28, the Stitt property north. The applicant has requested that that be removed from our agenda so that they can look into some additional items.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. And next we need to approve our March 17th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections, additions? If not, can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the March 17, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, same two motion and seconds. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And next we're going to move on to our public hearings. And before I do that, I'm just going to give a little bit of guidance to the participants. We will begin with a staff presentation of the case at the podium to my left, to your right. And following that, I will open the public hearing and we will begin with a set of comments and observations from the applicant. That applicant has 10 minutes to make those comments. And then after the applicant's presentation, we will invite others that want to address us on each public hearing to approach the podium using these stairs to my right, to your left. Please have a comment card prepared to give to the clerk, and then speak at the podium to my right, to your left. You're going to notice there's a little black box on that podium. When you begin speaking, that black box is going to have a green light lit for the first 4.5 minutes of your comments. That light will stay green. It'll then turn orange at 4.5 minutes, and at the end of 5 minutes, it'll turn red. At that point in time, I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments to be fair to others and to allow us to keep to our schedule. I'm going to ask you to be concise, avoid repetition where we have multiple people with the same interests. Perhaps you can appoint a spokesman. And please direct your comments to all members of the board, and don't be disappointed if we don't respond with questions. This is our chance to listen to you. With that, we are going to begin with case 13 REZ 32, Stevens Road rezoning. And Ms. Grannon?
Thank you. Good evening. This is a request for rezoning of approximately 7.77 acres 2 parcels located at 2300 and 2400 Stevens Road. Subject property is shown here highlighted in yellow. And an aerial view shows the current conditions, predominantly wooded. There is one of the parcels has been developed with a detached residential dwelling. Cary's land use plan designates the subject property for low-density residential. The property is also located in Cary's southeast area plan. The existing zoning is residential 40, and the applicant has proposed a zoning conditional use, residential 8 conditional use. This is a slide that shows the proximity of the Wellington Park Planned Development District in proximity to the subject property and the zoning of other properties in the general vicinity. At the initial Town Council public hearing, the applicant proposed a zoning condition that would limit the density to 3 dwelling units per acre. Since then, they have responded to some neighborhood concerns about density and introduced a revised zoning condition that would limit the maximum number of dwelling units to 19. So the net result here would be a density of 2.44 dwelling units per acre. Property owners within 400 feet of the subject property were notified, and there is a valid protest. The properties highlighted in yellow comprise enough land area to constitute a valid protest. The property that was highlighted in blue came in after the deadline and therefore was ineligible for a protest petition to be considered as valid. We still have noted the concerns from everyone who submitted a protest petition. The concerns from those parties, as well as 2 other citizens who called staff, was road connectivity to Forest Park Way in the adjacent Wellington Park subdivision, the traffic on Stevens Road, and the density and lot size. We've not heard back from any of these citizens since the initial public hearing, and as I mentioned, there was a slight decrease in the density. The applicant responded to that and limited the number of units. In regard to the connectivity, staff wanted to just take a moment to point out that the Wellington Park subdivision to the north, where Forest Park Way is located, does have right-of-way that goes right to the property line of the subject property. However, the road is not paved beyond the cul-de-sac. So this was an expectation as shown on the Wellington Park Planned Development District site and the recorded plat when the neighborhood was developed. But we have heard from citizens who, on one hand, they would like an alternate way in and out of the subdivision, but they don't necessarily want to see it at that point. But if developed, the applicant is aware that they would be required for making a road connection from Forest Parkway to Stevens Road. According to Cary's GIS maps, the site is not impacted by any stream buffers or floodways, and field determination of such features would be required at the time of site plan review. Stevens Road is designated as a collector road on Cary's transportation plan. Therefore, this means the applicant would be required to install a 30-foot streetscape along the road at the time of site plan review. This dashed green line shows the location of a proposed greenway trail in close proximity to the subject property. And the closest transit route is a future C-Tran route along Piney Plains Road, shown with the dashed green line. At this time, I would like to ask the applicant to come forward and present their request, and then following the public hearing, staff is available for your questions.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing, and we will begin by hearing from our applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Michael Dean Chadwick. I'm here tonight on behalf of the property owners. I'll thank the staff for the great job I think they did in presenting this particular community or proposed community. And I don't want to belabor or rehash, as you've requested that we don't do. I think the truth is the Forest Parkway extension is probably the biggest bone of contention. And looking at it as a citizen of Cary for 20 years, I understand public connectivity and the need for it. And with all due respect, we're okay with it or without it. I mean, it's not really our call. I think the 19-lot layout that we have for the community and the subdivision will fit well within the community. I have developed probably 1,000 lots or more in Cary, and have a pretty good reputation for doing what I say I'm going to do. I will be happy to answer any other questions you have, but we want to try to accommodate the residents, but we also want to make sure at the end of the day when we look back that we did the right thing by everybody. You know, what's it going to look like 10 years from now? Because you don't get a second chance at dropping back in and putting this road in. So, but I'll answer any questions you have and be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this point, I'll invite anyone else that would like to address us regarding this case to the podium. Anyone at all? Up?
There's one.
Here we are.
It looks like some others falling out.
Hello,
Would you move over to this? We have an AV guy that gets very upset if we're talking at the wrong
I
microphone.
wouldn't want to upset him so much. I'm Harold Jones. I'm speaking for my daughter, a resident at 107 Wordsmith Court in Wellington Park. That's just off the Forest Parkway that you have just been speaking of. There's no objection from her standpoint to the development. The objection will be having it become a drive-through from Cary Parkway through Forest Parkway to Stevens Road to Piney Plains Road and the various businesses that are located there. She feels that way for several reasons, that she would like to prohibit the drive-through. Access from her standpoint, she could care less whether it was by way of Stevens Road or by Forest Parkway, but only one of them, so that it's not a drive-through. The issue is safety and speed. If you have been in that area, you'll notice that many people that already live there don't do so well with the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, even though the Cary police try to help them with that idea. Because it would be a drive-through, we believe the speed would pick up greatly on Forest Parkway. We're also concerned if it's a drive-through from a security standpoint. It is a very secure and friendly neighborhood. In recent times, there's only been one robbery that has been recorded. We feel that if there is access from two directions, security would decrease to some measure because there would be two ways out if a person were on the verge of getting caught. The other issue would be with the businesses, both the Lowe's Food and such that are located at the corner of Cary Parkway and Tryon Road. That little complex, that little shopping center serves the Wellington Park residents well at this point. If it's a drive-through, I think many of the residents would go in the opposite direction by way of Stevens Road, Piney Plains Road, and so therefore we feel the businesses would suffer a bit at that point. The last thing that I would like to point out is I believe it would devalue the property. Case in point is there is a home for sale right this moment at the corner of Forest Parkway and Wordsmith Court. It's a very nice home. It should have been valued up in the high 200,000s. Everyone that has looked at it is concerned about this new drive-through coming through. It has dropped the price into the low 200s, very close to 200. So the feeling is that it would devalue some or all of the homes in the area. And I appreciate that you have listened to me And are there any questions back towards me?
I'm sorry, we can't ask questions at this point.
That
We have
makes
a
it
pretty
easy.
strict process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Tracy Philomena, and I reside at 2313 Stevens Road. The proposed rezoning I am not in favor of, but it's mainly from the standpoint of traffic and connectivity to Wellington Park. The road, as I understand it, when it comes through after the rezoning is approved, will dead end at my driveway. I have 2 young kids. They ride bikes and skateboard. They're ages 7 and 9. I grew up on this road. I actually live next door to my parents. I've lived on the road for more than 20 years, and it is the best spot in Cary, in my opinion. We're within walking distance of everything, and we have the luxury of good lot sizes and the ability for our kids to play in the neighborhood, in the woods, in the trees, everywhere and beyond. My concern is once this road is connected, now I live on a thoroughfare. We already have a problem on Stevens Road, just as the gentleman prior to me suggested that we have a problem with speeders. I was almost hit by a car in front of my house, and I live on a dead-end street just this past weekend. Trying to keep the car from speeding and hitting my children, I stood in front of it, and the driver opted to not speed. This driver was going about 40 miles per hour or more. So I have a concern with the speed at which people may travel down my street once this is connected, because then it becomes a shortcut to I-40 and US 1 and 64 and Crossroads from Cary Parkway, because they'll be able to avoid all the stoplights on Piney Plains and Tryon Road. So I'm very concerned that if this rezoning is approved, that this road's going to connect us to Wellington Park, and I'm going to have some huge concerns with safety for my kids, for my neighbors' children, and for our future children that may reside in our street. It's a lovely dead-end street with large acreage. I'm not necessarily opposed to the houses that may go on this piece of property, but I am absolutely concerned with the connectivity to Wellington Park. So I oppose the rezoning on that single point. If you can come up with a different way to allow the rezoning and the development to go through without connecting us to Wellington Park, then I'm in favor. But I am not in favor of moving forward with the rezoning because of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address us?
I'm James Center. I live
I'm
on.
going to ask you to move to your left again. We
Okay.
need to have you on that left microphone.
I'm James Center. I live at 2317 Stevens Road in Cary. That's straight across from where they want to develop the land and put the street through. And across from my property, well, the first picture you'll see is Stevens Road. And my property is the one to the left, and you can see the for sale sign for the property that's up for sale. The second picture shows you the drainage ditch or drainage pipe that runs under the road and onto my property. It's, if you go to the next page, which is page 4, you'll see where the drainage inlet starts on the property side that's for sale and runs under Stevens Road. It runs about 150 feet under my property. There's no easement there for it. It runs out into Wellington Park behind me. I don't think it's been took under consideration of what they're going to do with the water that comes down beside my property when they develop this road, the street across from it. as you see on page 5, that's kind of down through my property where the pipe runs. On page 6, you'll see the outlet of where it comes out behind my garage on my property. On page 7, you'll see where it runs into Wellington Park behind me. On page 8, you'll see that the Stevens Road again, but it shows you that it's actually measured as 20 foot 4 inches if you take a tape measure to it, from my driveway to across to the other side of the street. There was a couple of things I wanted to address. One is their R8 position. I think it should be R12 instead of R8. I don't think there's no reason to give them the right to put 5 units on something they're going to just put 2.5. So they say. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I'm concerned about the drainage running off and into my property from that side of the road. Like I said, there's no easement there. The pipe was probably put in before the state ever took the road over, before the town ever got it. So the drainage situation, I don't think they really took it under deep consideration of exactly where all that water was going to go. My second thing is Forest Parkway joining into it. I was kind of looking around on the website, and it says the existing road is 22 foot wide with 2-lane roadway, 60-foot right-of-way. And its existing, its future should be 37 foot wide, 2-lane roadway with a 4-foot wide bike lanes, a curb, gutter, and 5-foot sidewalks in this 60-foot right-of-way. If you'll go back and look at the pictures of Stevens Road, the very first picture, you'll see to the right that the cars are parked beside the road for a reason. They don't have room to park them. The house is right beside it. If you go in and take the 60-foot wide-of-way, which is going to have to be done if they add that road in, because you're going to be putting over 100 cars an hour onto this single-lane road is what I call it right now. And 100 cars an hour, according to the developer, it would be 23 cars an hour that it would change it to. But if you bring in Wellington Park in with it, you change it to over 100 cars an hour. That means the road needs to be widened to specifications that the town calls for, or it needs to be, the ordinance changed to where the road does not connect to it. I don't know who needs to pay for the road to be widened, whether the developer or the town of Cary. I think it's going through a lot of expense to cause a traffic jam at the end of the street. More than likely. It'll have to be stoplights put at the end of the Stevens Road. There's no way it can handle that just flowing out there. You can't see over the crest of the hill far enough down Stevens Road, Piney Plains, to really tell what's coming. So there would have to be a stoplight put there, or there'd be a lot of accidents from it. But the biggest thing is somebody needs to widen the road before the other road is joined into it. Now, whether it's the developer or the town of Cary, or say me, the town of Cary, that needs to be done for the other road to be joined in. And like I said, my biggest concern is the drainage on my property from where they're going to put street in over there, and it'll be pure drain off then, it won't nothing soak into the ground. Right now, I do have some soaking into the ground.
I'm sorry, that red light tells me I got to cut you off. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that would like to address us?
Hello, my name's Nancy Center, and I live at 2317 Stevens Road, right across the street from the land that's being proposed for the new road to come through. I think my biggest concern is that the traffic that we've all the previous speakers have mentioned coming through there, 100 cars an hour. I mean, we are probably seeing 10 cars a day coming through this neighborhood. So 100 cars an hour is just unfathomable. And this plan was made over 30 years ago in planning and development. I know 30 years you have to plan ahead of time what, how Cary is going to grow out. But how can a plan 30 years ago without a relook and some real planning going on to the existing neighborhood that's there? We've been in our property for 24 years. We moved in 1990 to this location. Wellington Park wasn't even there when we were there. It was forest and farmland, and we watched it develop, and we're happy for the neighbors in the back. We've had some wonderful friends that live back there. My kids have played with them. So I don't have a problem with growth. But Wellington Park has been there, I'm going to guess 18 years or so at least. They didn't need this road. They've been there, they have been established for 18 years and have no need to connect to Stevens Road. So 30 years ago, they didn't know that. When they built the maps 30 years ago, they said, wow, we're going to put all these houses and build Wellington Park. We're going to need a road to connect these neighborhoods together. And I'm sure it sounded like a wonderful idea. But 30 years later, you've got to come and look at the current situation in the neighborhood that we're in. We're not opposed to building, houses there. We're just opposed to this connecting road that is going to totally change our landscape, our neighborhood, the traffic, the volume. For what reason? It's not helping or hurting Wellington Park. They've been there 18 years without it. So I don't really think that the road is necessary, and I'm opposed to the rezoning, but absolutely in favor if we can come to an agreement and not connect Wellington Park to Stevens Road. I would be absolutely in favor for the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to us?
Hey, my name's Craig Felke. I live 2220 Stevens Road, right next to the property that's going to be developed. I'm with the rest of my neighbors. Everything's all right with the zoning. If they don't do it to R8, I'm fine with the R12. I'm more worried about how they're going to get the road footage with the other houses across the street that are so close to the center of the road. I mean, that's going to take a lot of my property away just to get the road through there. And, that's basically all I have to say. I don't know if y'all know how close the houses are off the center road, if anybody even surveyed it or anything like that. Just assume, everybody knows it's wide open on that side, so everybody said, well, put the road this way. But I don't know what the footage is that you're allowed to take from the center of the road. Besides, you have to compensate somebody. So I would like somebody to answer that if they could, but. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address us? Anyone at all? Seeing no one approaching the podium, I'm going to close the public hearing and open this case up for board questions.
I have a few. I'll start. I don't know, Ms. Grannon, does the town know anything about the drainage pipe that was referred to by one of the speakers by any chance?
We don't have information to that level of detail at this point. The question did come up at the initial town council public hearing about the site at the time of development needing to be attenuated back to pre-development conditions. So, I mean, there is a detailed process that we take a site plan through, so drainage and stormwater management will all certainly be addressed. But that level of specificity about any problems out there, we weren't aware of those.
And I know we've addressed this same issue recently with other cases, but I think it's correct that the town ordinance requires the connectivity, and the applicant is not really permitted to offer a condition saying he would not do the extension, right? He's required to
That
do
is
this.
correct.
And regarding the right-of-way, that was brought up by the last speaker, is there any additional information you can add on how that is accomplished?
The applicant would be required for the full right-of-way through their property for the extension of Forest Park Way. And as far as road improvements on Stevens Road, they would be required to dedicate the additional right-of-way required and do road improvements along their frontage on Stevens Road. So we wouldn't get the full right-of-way for the future build-out on Stevens Road until if and when the property on the south side of that street were to develop.
Okay, thank you, that helps. And just a couple more. The density range, so the underlying land use plan here is low-density residential, correct?
Correct.
And the density range is 1 to 3
1 to
units per
3.
acre. And with the current zoning condition, they're proposing 2.44?
That is correct.
Okay.
With a limit of 19 lots, that equates to 2.44.
And do you happen to know the density or zoning of the Wellington Park neighborhood by any chance? I didn't think to ask this ahead of time.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'll have to look for that and get back to you. I don't have that
Okay.
right off the top of my head.
That's all I picked up for now.
Okay, pretty good list. Mr. Warner?
In regard to the connectivity issue, let's say that the zoning was not approved, and it stayed at, what, 1.08 unit per acre. You would still have a connectivity issue required if a developer came in and developed based on the current zoning. Is that correct?
If they came in with a 7-lot subdivision, they would be required to make the connection.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, if somebody else does.
Mr. Shaw?
About the traffic and the road, Stevens Road in particular, would there be any need to expand the right-of-way, that is to take property and increase the right-of-way in order to
On
turn
Stevens
this into
Road?
a collector road?
Yes, that's in the staff report. The gentleman who spoke, the citizen, actually was reading from the staff report or citing from the staff report with the existing 2-lane road is 22 feet wide, and the future section is 37 feet wide. So the applicant would be required to do the additional right-of-way dedication on the north side of Stevens Road.
Just on the north side?
Correct.
But as far as the right-of-way itself, it's presently 60 feet, and it will remain at 60 feet.
That is correct.
Okay. Who would pay for any enhancement of Stevens Road other than in front of the site?
It's driven by development. There's no town projects right now, no capital projects for improvements on this road, but there are development plans that are being considered, so it does take place as development occurs. So road improvements occurred when this subdivision went in, and as property develops, that's when we get the road improvements.
Okay, so if that property doesn't develop, the property that, other than the site, if it doesn't develop, there would be no improvement.
Which property? To
The property to
The
the
subject property
east
or-
of the site.
to the
Further to the,
Right.
yes, there, that area. Is it correct that it would not be improved if that is not developed?
There's always the possibility that it may be a town project at some point in time in the future, but it is
But it's
principally driven by development,
It's not a town project at this time.
not at this time.
Okay. And the estimate of the additional cars, I believe 24 in the PM peak hour traffic, additional 24 cars, that's based purely on the cars that would be leaving the site, but not on the cars, additional traffic resulting from any connectivity.
Correct. That's based on the proposed 19 additional units.
So the additional traffic from just north of the site that would logically go onto Stevens Road is not included. And do we have any estimate of how many cars for peak
I
M?
don't think so. No, yeah. I don't have that information as
Okay.
part of the report.
And do we know the density or the size of the lots along Stevens Road presently near
Yes,
the site?
there's a range of lot sizes. These ones over here are approximately a half acre here to the south, even though it's an R40 subdivision. So then there's a range from everything from a full acre up to, 10 acres. So there's a wide range of lot sizes.
But they're considerably larger than the,
Well, it's an
Proposed.
R40, it's a residential 40
Yeah.
development, so it was a Wake County designation when the property was annexed into Cary. That was the automatic or the default zoning,
okay.
but there was a lot of properties on well and septic at one point in time, so hence the residential 40, you needed the land area. But this is now inside Cary's city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Rogers?
Just to expand on some of John's questions here. This number of 100 cars per hour,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
That did
Nobody
not come
knows.
from staff.
Okay.
I think that was a citizen's estimate.
The question that I have is kind of, if we're going to do a traffic analysis on a parcel that we know is going to interconnect or propose to interconnect to another development's stub, aren't we sort of creating a blind spot by not looking at how many cars are going to pass through this proposed development? I mean, it seems kind of logical to say, okay, there's going to be traffic coming through. It may or may not be a popular cut-through. You've got a known issue. Why do we sort of overlook maybe a bad characterization, but it seems like in a way we are overlooking that?
Let me see if I can address that. The rezoning case wasn't required to do a traffic study per se because our LDO basically says if the site doesn't generate more than 100 peak hour trips, then they aren't required really to do any study, and that's kind of all developments under that would be somewhat low to moderate type of developments. Your issue about introducing outside traffic from one neighborhood to another, we do look at that. This has been part of the PDD for many, many years, so it's been looked at from that context many years ago. That interconnectivity would be a good thing. Were the road sized appropriately for that? Obviously, through the Wellington development, probably so. Stevens Road, again, it's probably more of a rural standard. But again, a two-lane roadway should be able to carry sufficient volumes of traffic. It will be, with the connectivity, though, occurring, it will be a dramatic difference along Stevens Road. I think that's just intuitively that there is going to be some cross-connection between the Wellington residents as well as those who live along Stevens Road. I'm not sure where the 100 trips per hour interaction occurred. I think that's just a number throwing out there. Could that be that way? I would say that's probably on the high side. I have looked at it just on a cursory look, given the interaction between the two neighborhoods, and I'm thinking probably more on the side of probably an additional 500 to 600 cars a day is probably more appropriate. And during the peak hour, that's generally about 10% of the volume is what will be during the peak hour, so probably another 50 to 60. Again, if Stevens Road, remainder of the properties out there, people choose to sell and develop at higher densities, and again, that number could increase dramatically. So, but again, also we have Stevens Road planned to be a collector avenue in the future, where we're planning for an appropriate road size for the area. Again, we're kind of piecemealing this a little bit because not everybody's developing at one time, but we have planned for what Stevens Road would look like in the future if development occurred, and that's kind of how we're applying to it. Now today, a two-lane roadway, I think it could accommodate that, but it is going to be a dramatic difference for those that live on Stevens Road, and it will be also a dramatic change for those that live on Forest Parkway, because now you're having people that live in the Stevens neighborhood using that roadway to get over to the shopping areas at Cary Parkway and Tryon Road. So there is going to be an interaction, but the connectivity, even though it has some side effects, it does have a lot of good public benefits from it from both neighborhoods. We're already having some complaints about people in Wellington able to access on a Cary Parkway and Tryon Road at those two main entrances into their neighborhood, and it's predominantly because there's no traffic light, and it makes it very difficult. There will be some people, if this is connected, want to get to the Crossroads area using Stevens Road. I think that's just a natural way to gravitate if you can't make an easy way out. But again, I don't perceive there to be a large cut-through issue. The distance going through local roads around the intersection of Piney Plains and Tryon Road is almost double the distance as if you just stayed on a thoroughfare system. And actually, the posted speed limit on our thoroughfares are 45, whereas internally on these streets, they're all posted 25 miles an hour. There's also something in the Wellington subdivision also that kind of keeps the speeds down, is they've incorporated a lot of traffic calming devices along their roadways. So giving the speed limit, the extra length, and those traffic calming devices, it should somewhat keep things balanced, more of a neighborhood traffic using these roadways. But again, there's always going to be that possibility of some cut-through traffic, but we don't perceive it to be a long-term problem.
If I could, one more, please. The paragraph about Stevens Road indicating the ownership issue and stating that it was transferred to the town of Cary for maintenance. It looks like the area was annexed at some point in time, 2003. The question that I have is about this comment about the Powell bill. Now, that's money that the state designates to various municipalities based upon miles of road, et cetera. If we put a road into or accepted for the Powell bill, and then we make the statement, town does not typically widen or improve roads at the time of annexation, but if the neighborhood petitions, the town may consider curb, sidewalk following an assessment. This seems to be a pretty stable neighborhood based upon some of the comments that we've heard from the speakers tonight. In looking at the size of the lots, it doesn't look like there's a lot of lots there that are going to be developed like this one potentially could be. Assuming that the neighbors don't want to petition for sidewalks and curbs, I would think this road would remain undisturbed unless there was a neighborhood indication to do that. And the only thing that I'm questioning in my mind is, what does accepted for the Powell bill mean in any way, shape, or form to Are you going to spend money there, or are you going to wait for the citizens to?
Yeah, the Power Bill money is just money that is provided to the town. It's based on lane mileage. That money is used to maintain our streets. It's also, some of that money is used to improve other parts of our transportation system, whether it be sidewalks, resurfacing. Would we designate Powell Bill money specifically for improving this road? I couldn't answer that. Probably, most likely, is that Powell Bill money never, it's just a large enough amount that it barely even touches our resurfacing needs each year. And we look at resurfacing every year on a basically a worst-case basis in which we resurface roads. So I wouldn't say that Powell Bill money was specifically used for this project. Now, each year as the budget, capital budget is being formulated and prepared, we submit to the town council a list of projects, candidate projects, to be used for that could be used specifically, capital dollars used to improve those roadways, and this could certainly be a project if the town council felt it was a priority. Again, we have a lot of priorities in Cary, and I'm not sure if this would be one of those. So probably in effect, most of our collector roads and smaller are generally improved as development occurs. We generally concentrate a lot of our priority dollars into thoroughfares. But there have been a few cases where we've used some monies for connectivity type projects or widening certain parts of collectors, but it's very rare.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
While you're up there, would you mind telling me the designation for Forest Parkway?
Forest Parkway, I don't believe it shows up on our transportation plan as a collector avenue. But given its context of its street, its length of its street, the number of homes along that street, it was basically built to a collector street width. It's basically a two-lane roadway, and it has a outside area marked specifically for bicyclists, and it also has pedestrian accommodations through sidewalks along the roadway. So it generally functions as a collector street as well. And again, that neighborhood has historically, the speed limit on that road is 25 miles an hour, and that neighborhood has historically been an issue of speeding. That's why they instituted a lot of traffic calming in that neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one point of clarification. As I understand the conversation and input tonight, the major concern is with potential through traffic caused by the connectivity. And the connectivity is mandated, required by town ordinance. It's not necessarily a component of this particular development plan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So any development, future development of other acreage in there could potentially have the same problem for other individuals located on Stevens Road.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I do have one more. If Forest Parkway were extended, I believe I heard that traffic calming measures could be requested and potentially implemented along the...
Not necessarily as a zoning condition.
Right, understood.
But those are...
It is something that a neighborhood can request through the...
And what Mr. Jensen pointed out is that there are existing traffic calming measures on Forest Parkway.
And my follow-up question is, with or without that road extension, traffic calming, can be requested within certain parameters for any existing or new, and Mr. Jensen's going to help us here.
By the neighborhood.
Sure. I mean, generally our traffic calming program is done by a application and petition process. Certainly if they wanted, even if the developer wanted to hear the concerns the neighborhood, wanted to institute some type of traffic calming in their subdivision plan, they certainly could be considered and looked at. I'm not sure if they could actually put a zoning condition on that. But again, that's certainly something that, if they brought to the town, we'd certainly look at that during subdivision site plan stage for them. And
I guess my question is, could that apply to Stevens Road as well if they?
Certainly, we
to
could look at types of traffic calming on that road if the residents along that neighborhood would like to contact the town about doing a project. Yeah, again, traffic calming might be a little bit. The options for traffic calming along that roadway is a little bit more difficult, in that the roadway is already fairly narrow. But there are opportunities, though, and tools in our box to look at types of traffic calming. Its designation as a collector avenue kind of limits the kind of things that we can do along that. But it's certainly, if they want to petition the town to look at that with them, we certainly would be more than glad to do that.
Thank you. That helps.
Any other questions? None? In that case, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the board forward case number 13 REZ 32 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval, as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans, and is reasonable and in the public interest for reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
I'm sorry, who said that?
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Buck.
Mr. Chairman, the reason for my motion is, one, the density is right in the middle of what's acceptable for the land use plan at 2.44 units per acre. I noticed that the developer, the property owners, decided on their own to reduce the density from 23 units to 19 units based on concerns of the neighboring subdivisions. The connectivity issue is, if I were living on Stevens Road, I would rightfully be concerned about that. But at the same time, that connectivity issue is going to be there if this isn't approved and if the landowners decide to move forward with the R40 current zoning. So I see that as a non-issue in that light only.
Other comments?
Yes.
We're not usually this quiet. Bill?
I actually have to agree with those comments, but I'm going to come to a different conclusion. The density is very nice. I can't disagree with that. The connectivity issue, again, will be there regardless of development under this zoning, current zoning, or the proposed zoning. And, connectivity is great. It serves a valuable purpose. But I believe one of our speakers said tonight that, the plan is 30 years old and this is a mature neighborhood. One of our speakers was born and raised in this neighborhood. And 30-year-old plans don't always make sense today. It seems like connectivity is an ordinance, and it is just what it is. Sometimes I think things need to be discussed. You can't just look at an ordinance and say, well, that's what we do. I live in a neighborhood that's been in this community for 50 years. And very much like this, and it had a lot of cul-de-sacs that wind back. And recently we were connected right into Cary. And it's actually wonderful. I mean, it's a nice shortcut. I live way back deep in this subdivision. It's a nice shortcut, and we love it every day when we go out. But Cary also lost something very valuable with that connectivity. They lost a very unique, one-of-a-kind neighborhood that can never get back because it's now connected. The dynamic has been lost. There are some dynamics going on in these neighborhoods that I think, when we look at the criteria that staff asks us to look at about the rezoning will not have significant adverse impact on the property, I think it will. I think losing these type of neighborhoods is something that needs to be discussed and shouldn't just be in an ordinance that every time there's a development, well, we have to connect. Sometimes we might have to, sometimes we might not. In this one, I think the weighing the two, I think this will have significant adverse impact. And if somebody wants to develop under the current zoning and the road goes in, well, that's fine. But I don't have to agree to rezone this when I think that there's a connectivity issue that will significantly impact. So I'm going to vote no on the motion. But I agree with your points. We just come to different conclusions.
Other thoughts? Mr. Shaw.
Okay. I agree very much with what Bill said about connectivity. This is a very unique neighborhood. I've driven down several times down Stevens Road and looked at it. It's different from most of Cary. And it's not necessarily what everybody would like to live on, but it's what these people want to live on. I would hate to see that type of neighborhood be lost and for us to turn into a regular standard Cary neighborhood just for the sake of connectivity and for the sake of being able to rezone whatever a developer wants. The street is very narrow. It does not have curb and gutter, but apparently the people there living there like it the way it is. And even though it's very much different from the rest of Cary. Fortunately, I understand that the town council has requested staff look at the connectivity issue. And I hope that something positive will result from that, where we can not have to have connectivity when it's not necessarily warranted. Also, the very different zoning and lot size between the site and what's proposed and the existing Stevens Road, the way that has come about. It's quite a bit different and not, I don't think even a transition between the two. So for that reason, I oppose this.
Other questions?
Well, I have just a little bit to add in the discussion. Clearly, once again, we have connectivity as the major issue, as we've seen in other recent cases. The neighbors don't want the connection. The applicant would be just happy to not do the connection, as he stated, if that were possible, but it's not under current ordinance. And so it's difficult for me to oppose this on the basis of the connection because the applicant really has no choice, and as has been pointed out, it would be required no matter what. So as much as I don't like the connection any more than anyone else does, it's hard to oppose it on that basis. I will say, though, that the density that's allowed is 1 to 3, and 2.44 is up toward that edge, and as Mr. Shaw pointed out, does not really accomplish a good transition to the much less dense lots along Stevens Road. And so with that, and also the valid protest petition, which is something that I usually give a great weight to in trying to represent the citizens, on balance, although I think there are some good things here, and I do commend the applicant for reducing the density, on balance, I have to oppose this as well.
I'm in agreement with the last couple of speakers that are here. I think that the connectivity is definitely something that maybe we need to look at as a town, because the look and feel of this neighborhood is going to change. And I'm in support of these. I will oppose it.
Other comments?
I'll jump in. This is one of these tough ones that I think we all are kind of recognizing. If you play by the letter of the law, you kind of have to say it's got to be connected here regardless of what the density is going to be on the property once the property gets developed. If it does connect, you've got a street that is going to be attached to that is fully integrated into a cul-de-sac community. You've already got an existing speed problem there, and now you're taking a sleepy, quiet, narrow road and putting it in there. And as we've heard a speaker comment this evening, a couple of the houses on this street, I, like John, have driven down here to eyeball the neighborhood, are pretty close to the road. Now, you could potentially say, well, you know, shouldn't build your house close to the road, but some people do. The gentleman with the drainage ditch going through his property, I'd certainly like to see us address that in some way if, in fact, this parcel is going to adversely impact on the water flow through his property. So this is one that, you know, you kind of lay around afterwards saying, did I do the right thing or didn't I? Because I'm a little bit of a letter of the law person, I'm going to join John's conclusion and sort of end up saying I would vote for this, but I'm not terribly excited about my vote.
Other comments?
Well, since we're all getting in it. I've spoken out about connectivity before, and it's something the town council has to address. We're tasked with enforcing the laws as they exist right now and considering those. And as some other members here have said, in a sense, our hands are tied, but there are certain things we can do, and there are some individuals here who are opposing this with connectivity in mind. One thing, though, that I notice is when you look at the applicant and the question, have they done everything they could possibly do? I can't see an answer other than yes. They've changed the densities. As they said, they don't like the road any more than anyone else. But we're here to talk about what the applicant is trying to do with regards to this rezoning and with regard to the entire town. And I know it's supposed to not impact in the vicinity, but if you consider, how large do you consider the vicinity? How many people on Wellington, way down at the end, have been saying for years, if only that road connects, then not all the traffic comes my way. So we just don't know about that. The other thing is there's been a mention of a speed issue on Stevens Road. I did not hear of a speed issue on Forest Parkway, so apparently these calming measures are effective. And so I would encourage those calming measures to be explored for Stevens Road. Somehow I get the feeling that, oh, it would be okay to not have the connectivity, but suddenly speed bumps or whatever may not be so attractive as an option. So I have to look at the whole picture with the eye on what the developer or what the applicant has tried to do. And to my satisfaction, I think they've done as much as they can in the context of this application. So I will be supporting.
Well, I'll just follow up and certainly concur with much of what Marcus said. Again, going back to the connectivity, there are those elements of that I would disagree with, in that it does create a change to that community. But here again, the applicant has done their job as I see it, and the connectivity issue is being driven by a town ordinance, and certainly something that cannot be addressed by the applicant. So therefore, I would support this.
Well, not wanting to miss the boat, I'm going to pipe in as well. As several of you know, I've been on a soapbox on this connectivity issue and the fact that we need to take a relook at it. This is a case where people are impacted. We have victims, not because of what the applicant did, but because of what the town wants to force the applicant to do. And I agree that I think the applicant has put together a pretty good plan. It fits within our comprehensive plan. It provides the kinds of densities we said we wanted for this parcel. He is basically doing everything that our ordinance suggests he ought to do. Unfortunately, he's doing one thing that nobody wants him to do, that he has to do, and that's this connectivity issue. And by the way, I'm on the soapbox a little bit now, because anything I say now I can repeat at the town council meeting when I report on this case, and so I'm going to beat on my connectivity drum there because I said it here. I wish we had a better solution for this one. I wish that we didn't have to force this connectivity, and I'm hoping maybe by the time they actually get the site plan and have to build this out, we can find a solution to this. I think most of the members of the town council share our view that this is something we ought to revise, but we have to take action tonight. And based upon the application that we have before us, I think the applicant has done everything we told him to do. And it's kind of hard to deny an applicant when he does everything that the town tells him he ought to do. Because particularly when we're denying his application because of something we did, not something the applicant did. So I am going to support the motion as well. And seeing no more comments, I think it's time to call this for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Okay, and I'm going to ask for, okay, we have 5. Keep track of which ones, please. All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, we have a 5-4 vote. And I'm going to hope that that's one of the last ones that we get tied up on this connectivity thing. I'm hoping we get a speedy process to come back and relook at connectivity. Okay, so let's, now that I'm off my soapbox, let's get on to our next case, which is our 13 RAZ09, Northwoods PDD, Tract C1. Ms. Behrman, hopefully we don't have a connectivity issue in this one.
No, not in this one. Good evening. This is a request to rezone about 17 acres located between North Harrison Avenue and Sudbury Drive. You may recall this was presented to you at your February 17th meeting, and it was tabled for the applicant to go back and do some additional work with the neighbors. The applicant has done that and proposed some changes to the zoning conditions, which is why this is a public hearing this evening. So I'll go through and refresh your memory on the basic provisions of this request. This is a vicinity map. It's located on the west side of Harrison Avenue. It's about 1,000 feet north of Northwest Maynard. This is a closer aerial view. The site is presently wooded. The existing and proposed zoning district is Planned Development District. You can see the location of the site here in the corner. And the property is identified in the PDD as Tract C1. The site is also in the Northwoods Mixed-Use Overlay District, which is shown in pink. The Northwoods West and the Reedy Creek Mixed-Use Overlay Districts, which are shown in the blue and the green areas adjacent, are also separate mixed-use overlay districts, but they are partially within the boundary of the Northwoods Planned Development District. Currently, allowable uses on Tract C1 include a minimum of 75% of office use, and that has been defined as uses allowed in the O&I zoning district, and then a maximum of 25% commercial use, which would be uses allowed in the general commercial district. The applicant is proposing to add up to 90 townhomes as an alternative use that would be an alternative to the office portion of the development. Since this is in a mixed-use overlay district, there is a preliminary development plan required. This is the plan that has been proposed, and you can see 90 residential units. You can see the access points for the connectivity. Also, one of the zoning conditions now proposed is a 40-foot opaque buffer along adjacent to Sudbury. The 30-foot is the width that's required, and then there would also be a 50-foot opaque streetscape along Harrison Avenue, which would be enhanced in some areas due to the presence of a stream buffer that's there as well. These are the elevations that are included with the PDP Plan Development District, or the Preliminary Development Plan package. These characteristics of the Elevations are also provided on the cover sheet, so this is a committed element. So when the site plan is, if the site plan were to be submitted, we would be looking for elevations to match these. Since since this was presented to you on February 17th, the applicant has made several changes. First, the maximum number of townhome units has been reduced from 100 units to 90. The streetscape that I mentioned along Sudbury Drive was added as a zoning condition to increase the width of that from 30 feet to 40 feet. And also the applicant committed to a minimum of 12,000 square feet of the gathering space within the development. The minimum that's required by the LDO in the absence of that condition is 4,000 square feet. This shows the land use plan. The plan designation is actually office institutional. Because this is in a mixed-use overlay district and you look at the larger picture within the context of the entire overlay district by our ordinance, the land use plan amendment is not required for this change. According to Cary's GIS maps, there are some stream buffers on the site, but there would be a field determination of this made at the time of site plan review, and any required buffers would be provided at that time. This shows the Cary Parks and Greenways plan. There aren't any greenway or pedestrian facilities that directly affect the site. According to Cary's transportation plan, Sudbury Drive is shown as an existing collector, and Harrison Avenue is a major thoroughfare. A traffic study was not required for this site as the proposed use would generate fewer than 100 peak hour trips. However, there was a voluntary study done. That study was based on 111 units, which was the number of units that was being anticipated back at the beginning of the process when the traffic study was done. The traffic mitigations that were recommended in the study are included as conditions on the preliminary development plan. That includes extension of the Harrison Point Drive to provide a connection between Harrison Avenue and Sudbury. And then there would be signal modification of the stoplight there to account for the fourth leg of the intersection that would be provided. There is a C-Tran fixed route along North Harrison Avenue and also along Northeast Maynard Road. This is a notification map that shows the properties that were notified of the public hearing. There is a valid protest petition on the property. At this point, there were petitions signed by the owners of 9 properties within this area. I did receive an email from one of the property owners indicating that through the discussions with the developer that there is discussion of removing the protest petition, and I believe that email was sent to the planning board as well. However, at this point, I have not received any specific action to withdraw any of the protest petitions. The citizen concerns that were expressed in those protests included the existing concentration of high-density uses in the vicinity, imbalance with the mix of uses in the overlay district by reducing the potential for office space, and then in general, the traffic and other impacts associated with townhome use. That concludes staff's comments. I would now call on the applicant to present the request. After the public hearing, staff will be available for questions.
So at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing, and we will begin by hearing from our applicant.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the P&Z. Is this loud? Sounds really loud to me. Sorry about that. Jason Barron, here on behalf of the applicant, MI Homes. Here with me tonight is Jeremy Medlin, who's a representative of MI, who can answer questions related to this now, I guess, 14-month process they've been in and attempting to get this property rezoned. Also here is Mr. Robbie Oldham. He's the engineer with Withers and Ravenel, who's been doing the engineering and land planning associated with this project. And finally, Mr. George Jordan, who's the property owner, is here as well and has a long history with this particular piece of property. I'm going to try to do my best to avoid repeating a lot of what Mary said, but I do want to hit a couple of high points, update you on where the conditions are, along with our conversations with the neighbors. Before I do, I've got 2 letters of support that we've received, and I'm not sure if those have been communicated to you all, so I'm going to pass those around. These are letters from business owners in the area that are supportive of the case, including the owners of the Harrison Point Shopping Center across the street. As far as update is concerned, as Mary indicated, we have continued to be in communication with the folks who live across the street. The folks who live across the street are no stranger to zoning cases proposed for this particular piece of property. And so my client has done, I believe, a very good job of working with them very directly, very diligently, and very respectfully, understanding that no matter what goes on across the street, these folks will be impacted by it. Those conversations have been productive, and even though the protest petition has not yet been removed, so for purposes of tonight, there is a valid statutory protest petition. We are optimistic that at some point during this process, before a final vote is cast by the town council, that our efforts will result in that protest petition going away. The conversations to date lead us to believe that that is going to occur. The changes that have been made since this case has been filed have been significant. Those are changes that have been designed to, in large part, address the concerns that have been raised by the neighborhood. As Mary mentioned, there's a 40-foot Type A streetscape that's being proposed along Sudbury. The code requires 30, so that's a 10-foot increase in the Type A buffer that would essentially buffer these towns from Sudbury and the residences that back up to Sudbury. The building elevations are a committed element. That's a fairly unusual zoning condition to see, and that's a significant commitment by the applicant to kind of put his money where his mouth is and say, we know what it's going to look like. We want to be able to show our neighbors it's going to be a high-quality townhouse product, and we believe those elevations are reflective of what will be a high-quality community. There is a second community open space that has been added, which is added at least 8,000 square feet of open space, which includes a patio, hardscaping, landscaping, an outdoor fireplace, kind of a community gathering space on the site. And finally, and maybe most importantly, the proposals now for 90 townhomes. When this case started, when they had their first neighborhood meeting, the presentation was that there would be 111 townhomes. So the overall reduction in proposed development density is in the 20% ballpark. That's a significant move on a residential rezoning, a residential development case. So, and we believe, again, that the conversations with our neighbors are reflective of conversations where these changes have been well received. And we're going to continue to work with them in the hopes of having all the issues resolved with the neighbors. I want to talk a little bit about the use, and you all are familiar with the site, have heard the case one time already, and certainly are familiar with the Northwoods planned development and kind of what was planned for this property 30 years ago. It's fairly ironic, sitting in the audience listening to the prior case, in trying to, having two cases come before you all back to back where there's a planned use that's basically been on the books for 30 years. And you have to make the determination, does this make sense or doesn't it make sense anymore? And so the Northwoods PUD was adopted in 1982. This property has been designated for some sort of office and institutional use now for 32 years. And as you saw on the aerial, the site remains vacant, and I think it's the last vacant site for a good ways within proximity to Harrison Point Shopping Center. We believe a residential use of the one proposed is reasonable and very much in the public interest. We believe it's a use that will complement the existing built environment over there. And we believe there are a variety of reasons that make a residential use as opposed to an office or an institutional use more preferable from a planning and development standpoint. First, it's a transitional use. As you all are familiar, Harrison Avenue carts a lot of cars on a daily basis, and having a townhome use adjacent to it that will essentially serve as a transition to the lower density residential that sits to our west, we believe is, from a planning standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. It's walkable. Harrison Point Shopping Center is right across the street. When they put the new traffic light in, they went ahead and striped a crosswalk. So the crosswalk, the infrastructure for providing for crosswalk is already there. All my folks need to do is to plug into that. Transit is located adjacent to the site. There is a C-Tran route that passes right by this that loops up around into Weston and then comes back down Harrison Avenue. And there's actually a transit stop that is currently sitting on this piece of property. And there's a plan, as you probably saw in the staff report, to expand that potentially to add a shelter and benches and things of that nature. The topography of the site makes developing certainly offices a challenge. There's a significant grade change from the western portion of the site back here at Sudbury up to the front. And as you all are familiar, there is a significant environmental feature here that for a townhouse development is an asset. They can put in things like walkout basements. They can utilize the natural features of the site rather than having to kind of mow down and flatten the top of it and squeeze an office building on there. Additionally, the topography provides a really nice buffer for the residences that would be essentially backing up to Harrison Avenue. And we've done a little bit of figuring out how close the houses would be, and these houses are essentially going to be about 200 feet off of Harrison Avenue. This one is a little bit closer, but these houses along this portion of the property, because of the buffer that's created by the site itself, which my client really likes, results in a roughly 200-foot setback from the townhome units to Harrison Avenue. Again, we think topography is one really compelling reason why residential makes a lot more sense for this particular property, certainly as opposed to office. And finally, traffic. This is a significant reduction in proposed traffic. As you saw in the staff report, the expectation is this is going to generate roughly 1/5 of what the planned office use could put on the site. And as you saw, the developer voluntarily performed a TIA, another unusual step by a developer in the rezoning process, and has agreed to comply with all of the recommended mitigations contained in that traffic study. So in sum, we recognize that this is a tough case from the planning board standpoint, from planning and zoning board. You all have to essentially make the determination: do we stick with what has kind of been on the books since 1982 and wait potentially another 30 years for some magical event to occur and this becomes an office site, or do we take advantage of what is before us today? Again, I believe there are plenty of reasons from a planning standpoint, plenty of reasons why residential makes a lot of sense for this site. The last point I'll make is on the office front, and that is, in 1982, Weston didn't exist. And in that time, Weston has developed for a tremendous amount of office, and as you all have probably heard in other cases, they're still planned for close to 1 million square feet of office over at Weston. They still have the potential to add another 1 million square feet of office. So I would submit that this site is not going to be developing for office in any reasonable time, and considering topography, we believe that a rezoning and the plan development, the preliminary development plan that is before you today is reasonable and in the public interest, and we respectfully request your support of the same. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address us on this case?
Good evening, guys, ladies.
Good evening.
My name is Ray Dory, and I'm here tonight to voice my what should we call it? support for this project. I've been a North Cary resident for 23 years, and I also own a business downtown, Dory's Downtown Deli. And I can't think of a more perfect time than a project like this to come about. I think I speak for a lot of merchants that would say that it's the right time and we need residents to, be involved in downtown, and I think we need the support from these potential people to live down there. So I'm here tonight to let you guys know that as a longtime resident of this area, I fully support this project. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs in downtown Cary with the road closings and a lot of things that have, hampered business with the potential of increasing business. I think with this project, it would bring, some welcomed customers and some people down to the, we're all waiting for downtown to blossom, and I think it's the right project for the time. That's really all I have to say tonight, but I'm fully supportive of this project. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to us? Anyone? Seeing no one approach the podium, I'm going to close the public hearing and open this case for board questions.
I'll start again. With the proposed 90 units on, I believe it's 17.3 acres, if I calculated correctly, that's about 5.2 units per acre density. I think that's consistent, although this is part of a planned development district, that would be consistent with a medium density designation, which is 3 to 8 and would be about in the middle of that.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to refresh my memory on that.
That's it?
That's all I can think of for now.
Expecting more from you. Mr. Shaw.
No questions, no connectivity issues.
Thankfully we do. Anyone else? I'm at a loss to understand why we've gone quiet here. In that case, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I move that the board forward case number 13REZ09 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans and is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Best, I think you beat out the bell there. All right, we have a motion and second discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is a worthy project for that area. One thing that struck me when I drove around the neighborhood of how many apartment complexes are in that immediate area. And even the staff report indicated that there is a shortage of single-family home residential. And I think that this is a good transition between the apartments and the single-family homes to the west. I also like the walkability factor. I think that that is something that the town should be looking toward going forward into the future of having this type of mixed-use walkability. I think is a healthy thing for that area. And I like the fact that the developer came in and recognized that there were issues by the neighboring single-family home owners to the west and reduced the density from 111 to 90. So for all those reasons, and not to mention the fact that it does fit nicely with the land use plan, I think it's worthy of approval.
Other comments?
I think it's an excellent project, the proposal, the way that the townhomes are proposed to look, the topographies, I think is going to be a very attractive community, and I think it's great for the town of Cary with the walkability to Harrison Point and downtown. Probably one of my favorite projects so far.
I like it. I like the project itself, but in particular, I like the walkability aspect and the ability to easily walk over to the shopping across the street. I hope the intersections are designed to allow, to make it easy for pedestrians. So for that reason, I strongly support it.
Other comments?
Yeah, I have a different view, so I do want to make sure I weigh in with my comments as to my rationale here. I do think this is a reasonable use for this property. I have a couple concerns. One is that the imbalance of residential versus non-residential uses in this area. Although this does provide another housing type, it is a further imbalance in an area that already has way more than its share of multifamily and residential in general. And so the residential use, although it is attractive from many perspectives, that's one concern. And in the interest of being consistent with my previous comments, there does remain a valid protest petition, and I do give that great weight in attempting to represent the citizens here. And so for those reasons, I'm going to oppose this, but also say that it is likely that this is preferable to other alternatives, and I commend the applicant and the neighbors for working together. Hope they continue to do that, and actually hope that that protest petition is removed, because I suspect this is very likely the best among various alternatives. But at the moment, in this moment in time, although this is very tough on balance, I'll oppose this.
Other comments? Well, we're not going to get, Bill? You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, this is on my commute to work every morning. And so I've been looking at this site daily and thinking about this project, and the more I drive by it, the more I think this is a very appropriate use for this property. The walkability is fantastic. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening right here, and great potential for other stuff to happen within this development as far as commercial and restaurants and that type of thing. So I think it's a very good use. I'll support it.
Anyone else? In that case, I'm going to pipe in. Office probably made sense on this parcel 30 years ago, when we had a different vision of how parcel and mixed use was going to evolve in Cary. But as was pointed out, you get developments like Weston to the north that have kind of redefined what office is going to be. And it's made it very difficult for developers to build office on this kind of parcel. And then you add to that the topography. It would be extremely difficult with, limited side view from the street and the inability to have effective frontage. It would be very difficult to put office here. So that brings it down to residential. I understand and share the concerns that we've putting in an awful lot of higher density residential in this particular PDD and general area. But this is a case where at least it's a little lower density and it's walkable. And boy, you got to support that. And for those reasons, and for the other reasons cited, I'm going to support the project as well. So not hearing anything else, I'm going to call this case for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, that motion carries 8-1. I believe that concludes the business on our agenda tonight. Oh, have I missed something? You were looking at me like, oh, no, all right. That concludes our business.
Yeah.
So could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.